Politicians don't understand people who do good simply because it's right. It makes them nervous.
Are you familiar with FBI Special Agents Kyle Seraphin?
I'm familiar with the name.
Is that yes?
I'm familiar with the name. Familiar with the name. Familiar with the name.
Let's bring in Kyle Seraphin. He's the FBI whistleblower who helped expose government censorship of our First Amendment rights.
Now, we only have this memo because a recently suspended FBI agent called Kyle Seraphin brought it to the public, and we're grateful that he did. Kyle, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
He's the host of something that strangely is called the Kyle Seraphin Show.
Kyle Seraphin, I can't thank you enough for speaking out. I knew you guys were out there, and I knew it was just a matter of time, but you got a lot of guts putting your face and your name to this. You're doing a service on behalf of the American people, and from the bottom of my cracked and broken heart sometimes, thank you very much.
Take a look behind the curtain with a real whistleblower and American patriot. Prepare to embrace the uncomfortable truth because this program has no time for comforting lies. Here is civil liberties enthusiast, Second Amendment defender, and recovering FBI agent Kyle Seraphin.
Well, hello, my friends. Welcome to the Kyle Seraphin Show. Today is Monday. It is August the 12th. And we are rolling live on rumble.com/Kyle Seraphin. We are over on Twitter X. I'm really sick of that. I wish they had just left the name as it was. We're on Facebook. We're on YouTube. We're also over on Locals. If you guys want to join us on the Locals account, make sure you follow us over there. It is KyleSeraphin.com. That will redirect you to our Locals page, which has a much longer name. KyleSeraphin.com will get you there. And you guys can make sure you like and subscribe anywhere you are listening. We appreciate you guys doing that. The volume's really low. See, look, this is what happens when I go and I look at the live chat. Eric Jason is one of our moderators on there, says he's got issues. It's probably on your end, my friend. Live show. We do troubleshoot in real time, but I think sometimes it is you guys. All right. We've got a big show of information because the weekend always stocks up a lot of things and puts it in our little hopper. I had more stories than I could cover today. One of the things that I'm not going to be discussing is apparently threats by the United Kingdom's government saying that they were going to come after people all over the world who are making what they call terroristic threats or hate speech online. I just don't see that as being a real problem. And I will say 1776 and 1812 are sort of the reasons why. But there are a lot of other things happening out there. Before we get into the stories, I want to go ahead and suggest that you guys support my friends over at Catholic Vote. They are our single most loyal and largest sponsor. They allow this program to continue, and we do some really neat stuff with them on the side. CatholicVote.org is their website, America's top advocacy group in the fight for faith, family, and freedom. They have fully endorsed Donald Trump, like many of you, and they are pushing forward to try to get this man in office. Got some interesting Donald Trump news as well as of just a few minutes ago, I think. So CatholicVote.org is our crew. I hope you guys follow them on social media. They put out some really good stuff. And when we say those values, they're talking about things, faith in God, family, to include the unborn, and freedom, your civil liberties. They're pro-gun, just like me. They've had no problem. They sponsored a podcast that started off with like a couple of AR-15s just sitting in the background. Now we're a little bit more historical. We've got a single action army Colt sitting behind me. It's a Colt replica. And I've also got a Colt side-by-side shotgun sitting there on that Betsy Ross flag. Catholic Vote has been with us since the beginning. We do appreciate it. So follow them over at CatholicVote.org and get the loop and all the other things. Thank you, Rose, in the chat for making that go. Should we get started? Should we get started with this? I guess Joe Biden is still pushing his most important policies. So it's good to know that those are out there in the world. This one is coming from ABC News. I just like seeing this stuff. It makes me happy. Joe Biden is worried about canceling subscriptions, I guess online or whatever. Canceling subscriptions should be as easy as it was to sign up, says the newly proposed federal rule. This is part of their junk fee crackdown. The things that Americans really care about: lead in pipes and junk fees. I don't know. I don't know what that means. I don't know what that's about. There's new regulations. They're going to get rolled out today on varying timelines. They're very upset about the cancellation of the things you sign up for via email. I mean, I get it. I don't like it. I had a little instance the other day where we had signed up. This is actually fully stupid, but I don't think the federal government should be involved in it. We signed up for the YMCA, like a lot of people do. And then we found out that there was like this gender-confused teenager who was teaching a mostly girls gymnastics class. You know, the kind that has like the Brahma bull septum piercing in his nose, and he's got like little curly hair, but it's longer than it ought to be, and he's got tattoos like on his neck region and painted fingernails, and he wore like girl sweatsuits. That kind of guy. And I don't need him touching my 5-year-old or my 7-year-old girl because I don't want to have to take him and staple him to a tree somewhere in the wilderness. So we resigned from the YMCA. We canceled our YMCA membership. And then I kept getting this repeated billing. It's $160 on like the first or second of every month. And this happened like 3-4 months in a row. And so I'd call my credit card company and or I would, go on the app and I would dispute the charge. And I'd be like, all right, none of that. I don't know why they're charging me, but they've got some kind of billing issue. And it kept going and it kept going. So after 4 months of this and 4 denials and having the credit card company reverse it on my behalf, I call up the YMCA and I get this child on the phone who doesn't want to talk to me and is very upset that there's like a phone conversation. They're wishing it could be text, I'm sure. And she said, well, yeah, we canceled your membership to the Y, but we didn't cancel your gymnastics costs. And I said, well, why not? The reason for us canceling the Y was that we were moving. That's what it says on the form. And she's like, oh, well, you just have to come in and fill out another form. And I was like, no to all of that. Like, I'll get a new credit card before I do that. And so anyway, after a handful of stupid interactions, I finally get a call back from the gymnastics program manager, and they straighten it out. But what does that have to do with Joe Biden? What does that have to do with the White House? Like, I get it. I don't like being charged subscriptions, but it's just as easy, especially because almost all these subscriptions are done via credit card, right? Like, they're not coming to your house and collecting them manually with cash. So this is not a federal government issue. If you have a credit card, and you guys don't know this already, the credit card company has more interest in you being a happy customer and continuing to spend money than they do in the business that is illogically charging you for things. It's very easy to reverse these charges. It takes you about 2 minutes online. You just go bip, 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 bip. You type it in, you give them a reason, and it's over. So why is the White House wasting their time on this? They're wasting it because they basically are not doing anything of value. That's my take. We have a completely ineffective group of people that are running this country. And this is the biggest indicator. The other day we heard some speeches. They happened like at the end of last week. Kamala Harris is going out and she's talking about how day one problems. And I talked about this on Timcast if you guys saw us on Thursday. If not, you can go check that out. People said it was okay. I don't know if it was good or not. I got the up at 4:30 that morning and flew out. It was like a whirlwind 20 hours of travel. So I don't know how great it was. But what I do know is that we talked about something that didn't make it on the air. And that's that Kamala Harris says, day one, I'm going to be attacking and handling inflation. I just want you to think about that for one moment. On day one, her first priority is solving the inflation problem. And you go, well, okay, wait. Aren't you the vice president of the United States right now? And aren't you sort of like the de facto person who's running the agenda since you're running for office for the next 6 months? Why not just do it now? Why not fix the inflation problem now and show us what you can do? Because all I see is you suck. You suck at taking this. You suck at solving these problems. And what you're trying to tell us is you need another shot after you get elected president. How does that work? How do you make that argument? How dim-witted are the people that are interested in a Kamala Harris presidency? And I mean that like very sincerely. The person who actually has direct access to the authority to do whatever it is they would do. And I don't know that the president can solve inflation, by the way. I actually don't think they can. I don't think that's the kind of king we have. We used to laugh when I was in high school, I want to say. Maybe it was in college. Something about, making fun of, it was either during the run up to, or maybe it was while George Bush was president. I think it was like a Babylon Bee type article that someone wrote a friend of mine. And it was like George Bush has basically said he's going to be bestowing himself as a benevolent dictator of the United States, and therefore he will, grant rainfall to the parched wasteland of the Midwest and so on and so forth. It's like, yeah, of course, they don't have that authority. They don't have that power. Kamala Harris, I don't think she can fix inflation either way. But if she's telling us she can, and she's going to make you vote for her in November so that she can do it in January, I would be out for that. If I was a Democrat voter, I'd be like, that doesn't make any bit of sense. We're going to talk about some of these other inconsistencies, but this whole idea that you're going to attack junk fees, that you're going to do this like sort of like busy work. This is federal busy work. That's not real. Meanwhile, the real stuff is not going to get solved at all. And they're not interested. It's totally strange. It's strange beyond belief to me. So that's why I think this is kind of funny. This is CNN's headline this morning. The 2024 campaign will now turn on whether Trump can blunt Harris's soaring start. Apparently, she's having a soaring start. She's a 15-watt bulb tops, right? I mean, it illuminates things that are really, really close to it. But if you get far enough away, then you start looking into the reflection of the plane and you see that this is an AI-generated crowd. You guys know what I'm talking about? Did you see this? I'm not going to throw it on the screen. It doesn't really matter. But Kamala Harris basically had a large reception of people shown in pictures. And then you look into the plane, and the one thing that happens if you add an AI crowd is that having the ability to put them also in the reflection appropriately is really, really expensive AI. Like, they do it in movies. There's no doubt about that. You can make a reflection legit. But there was this picture going wide about how these people were there in a hangar to greet the vice president as she lands. And of course, there's like Air Force Two is shown with 0 people in the reflection of the paint, which is pretty shiny. It's not good. The other thing you see is that all these people have these phones up and they're like recording things that are like really bright, or it looks like maybe even the tail end of the plane, but they're not aimed at the tail end of the plane, and all the people can see the tail end of the plane, even though their hands are not high enough up to actually videotape anything. Anyway, it's as fake as the campaign soaring start that is being discussed here by CNN. Okay? It's just astroturfed. So this is Stephen Collinson, who is my favorite. I love his analysis because I know that it's always pretty much spot on wrong. It says Donald Trump's campaign, which whiffed in its early attacks on Kamala Harris. I mean, did it? Will grapple this week with a more effective foothold after the vice president transformed an election with a stunning series of surprises. Yeah, the surprise is that she was able to usurp her party and enact a coup on the guy that's actually in the White House, who's now going after, again, lead pipes and junk fees at resorts. Resort fees when you go and stay in a hotel. I don't like them either. I just don't think the federal government has any business in it. The ex-president, that's Donald Trump, has deployed some of his most trusted political tools, targeting racial identity, creating alternative realities, flinging insults, and gaslighting. It's so gross to see people on the left come after people on the right with the exact same tactics. It's completely illogical. When ex-president, now he's ex-president. It used to be former president, but now it's ex-president. When the ex-president called Harris dumb at a Montalvo rally, or falsely claimed that she just happened to turn black. I mean, she is dumb. She's not bright. Just listen to her talk. Listen to her talk off teleprompter. And she just goes rambling and bumbling around. She touches these words like they're bass. Do you remember playing when you played like not capture the flag, but like tag or freeze tag when you were a kid? And maybe this was just my childhood, but we would always, you'd set up a base and you could run and touch base and you could take a breather and then you're running around. And basically, I think tag is essentially a game now as a parent that parents created so that kids would run until they fell asleep when it was time to go to sleep. When the lights came out, they were like, bam, they were just lights out. And when you'd run and you touch base, and then like the most useless people, they would run out and they'd be like, blah, and then they go and they touch base and they stay on the base and they'd run back out again when it was safe. And they touch. That's exactly what Kamala Harris does in her speeches. She finds a word like significance and then she just touches it back and forth. She's running back and forth to the same word, even though it doesn't make any sense. And those were the least fun people to play tag with too. In any case, I don't disagree with his characterization of dumb. She's not bright. One of you said a 4-watt night bulb. I think she's more than that. She can string a sentence together. The sentence just doesn't have to make any sense. In any case, CNN is basically hyping her again. And they're trying to talk about how significant this move is and how incredible it is that she offered a burst of optimism. This is a really, truly telling paragraph. In 3 weeks, Kamala Harris has created a potential turning point, offering voters a burst of optimism after a dark period in modern history, where her mantra that Americans don't want to go back to the chaos and acrimony of Trump's term. The chaos and acrimony are almost exclusively created by people on the political left. It's the reason why someone took a shot at Donald Trump. Because that kid, that 20-year-old kid, lived his entire life hearing that Donald Trump was the devil and evil and Hitler. I mean, how else do you explain this? The acrimony and the tumultuous times were concocted. They were also created. Because anybody who was reasonable would have been like, you know what? I didn't like him on the campaign trail, but things are pretty good. And I guess maybe that's what makes it so interesting right now that Donald Trump has decided to come back to Twitter. Now, there's a couple of interesting things that are happening in that realm because he has his own social media site. It is obviously much smaller. For those of you who are on True Social that follow us, I appreciate that. You guys see I interact there less. There is less of the opposition. There are less people who disagree with me there. And that makes it less interesting to me. I'm only interested in having conversations that are like difficult and unpleasant and maybe coming in aggressively and hard on people, including people that otherwise agree with me. We had a whole interaction about whether or not women should vote. One of the Navy SEALs that I follow, retired Navy SEALs, had some interesting comments on it. And there's some arguments to be made that the 19th Amendment was a bad idea. There's a lot of bad outcomes that have happened since then. That doesn't mean that I think women are bad. It means I think women are awesome. I just don't think that voting should be in the hands of everybody, and less is more. And moreover, and probably maybe the most important piece of it, is that women are the ultimate lobbying group. Women don't realize the power that they hold is actually being cheapened by having them try to compete with men. This is another a show for another time, but there's something very important about women being able to influence the behavior of men for the good of men and society, but also to be tempered, because we should have a little bit of both. I don't know. I like one vote and two minds going into it. My wife and I will disagree about certain things, but we agree about all the values. So the outcomes can be discussed. And when it comes to certain things, mostly financial policy in our house, like I take precedence. And it's worked out okay. Anyhow, your household may vary. I got into a little back and forth with Tracy Beans. Not disagreement, I think. But the thing that we've seen feminism do, and this is a total aside, and like I said, a show for another day, but the thing that feminism seems to have done, it's taken the most important values that women bring to society and made them not important to other women. And that is the biggest lie that's ever been done. So I don't see, I think I said, I don't see a single female in the world that I want to see as president ever. And Kamala Harris is like the worst of the worst that could be there. Anyway, that'll prick some of your thought processes and turn on the key on some of you. And some of you, I've dropped the quarter in, so I know I'm going to get the ride. So feel free, drop it in the comments. You can do it on our locals channel. You can do it on Rumble. You can do it on Twitter. You can tag me there. How about this? Donald Trump back on X. So as I said, he has his own social media platform, but the reach is so important. Now, this is a really interesting thing. He's had his account come back, but not been sharing on there. And this is the first video they dropped. And I think it's an important moment to touch that base, that Kamala Harris style base of what Ronald Reagan said. And so they actually saw the thing. The only disagreement I have with this video, which has already been seen like 16 million times, the only disagreement I have with this video is the announcer voice, I think, is ineffective. But putting Ronald Reagan's words in a different time with the exact same context, truly powerful. So we're going to play that real quick. I don't do campaign videos per se, but I think that this is one that matters.
Please welcome President Ronald Reagan, who has a few questions for you.
All of you will go to the polls, will stand there in the polling place and make a decision. I think when you make that decision, it might be well if you would ask yourself, are you better off than you were 4 years ago? Is it easier for you to go and buy things in the stores than it was 4 years ago? Is there more or less unemployment in the country than there was 4 years ago? Is America as respected throughout the world as it was? Do you feel that our security is as safe, that we're as strong as we were 4 years ago? If you don't think that this course that we've been on for the last 4 years is what you would like to see us follow for the next 4, then I could suggest another choice that you have.
President Trump. He'll make America great again.
All right, so that's Donald Trump's little piece. I think it is a salient question. It's interesting that even CNN is struggling with their own people that they're bringing on, their own guests, to make this argument. It's an elitist argument to say everything is great. This is the best time ever. Unemployment is so low. The economy is booming. How dare you say otherwise? when you hit them with the actual facts, people on the ground, not the elitist who lives on the coast, the people who are regular Americans that you deal with, that live next door to you in your neighborhood, or that you interact with in your social sphere, that don't have access to CNN jobs where they're making tons of money. And it doesn't matter how much. I mean, inflation always hits the poorest hardest, just like bringing in illegal immigration hits the working class and the lowest paid workers the hardest as well. CNN's struggling to try to make this narrative, and I don't think it plays. Because listen to this guy. This woman tries to correct him, and she has to concede, like, well, yeah, of course prices are higher. But like Steve and I talked about the other day, that death spiral of taxing and inflation, it's like you're making more money because money is worth less, and we're going to take more of it, and then you're going to still have lower buying power. It's real. And real people can feel the pinch because they can look at their own circumstances and say, I am not better off than I was 4 years ago. So the words of Ronald Reagan ring true. I think it's a strong base to touch back on. And I'm glad he did. And I'm glad that he's back on X. There needs to be dialogue where the people are, where the discussion can be had, where he can go and make headlines with mean tweets as necessary. All right, here's CNN disagreeing on camera. Fun to see it.
They do not believe that their incomes have superseded inflationary rates.
I mean, they have. They have.
For some.
No, overall. Like,
for
they
some.
have.
I'm going to push back on that. I think it's easy for people living in big
I
East
cover
Coast
this. This is my job.
I understand that it's your job, but when you go and talk to regular people, they're going to tell you, when I go to the grocery store, it is more expensive for me to pay for goods.
True. That
so
is
you
true.
cannot negate that fact with all due respect to your job.
Okay, I'm just saying inflation has gone up. That is very painful. I do not discount that. It's very salient. Groceries, gas, among other things, that's absolutely true. But it's not true that household incomes are at a decade low. It's not true that the economy isn't growing or that we turned off the oil spigot or whatever else. I think you can recognize how people feel and also give them the real facts about how the economy
I think it is incredibly aloof to sit here at this table and pretend that what people are experiencing aren't real because some numbers on a chart showcases the data says otherwise.
I agree.
That's absolutely insane.
Michael, I actually agree.
That is absolutely insane.
Inflation is real and it's painful. I'm not suggesting otherwise.
Out of touch for people in big cities making great money telling everyday regular people that what you're experiencing doesn't mean a darn thing because my charts say otherwise. That's
not
ludicrous.
what I said.
It is ludicrous, and it is the contention. This is why they're going to go after junk fees and why they're going to go and try to fix how hard it is to get a subscription online. Like, this is garbage. That woman made several arguments, and the best thing that guy said, so the black gentleman, I don't know his name actually, and I wish I did. He's a Republican strategist. I looked him up previously. Sharp guy. He's like, that's not my argument. You're arguing against not my argument. She punched up a straw man and said, like, look, I can defeat what you've said. And he was like, that's not what I said. What I said is that regular people can see the pain at the gas pump, at the grocery store line, that they are experiencing outcomes that are less favorable, regardless of your numbers on a chart. The reality is they do not see a benefit in the last 4 years. If Trump can hone in on this and less of the nonsensical, racial stuff, and she is dumb, but none of that matters. The fact of the matter is when dumb people run the policy, the outcomes for you are worse. How many times have we listened to someone who's like, let's say, a CEO, and they're not a good speaker? If the company is performing and everybody is getting their bonuses and everybody is getting paid and the customers are happy, who cares? It's irrelevant. It doesn't matter whether they're a DEI hire or not if the machine is running properly. But right now, the United States is not running properly on several levels. There's a financial problem, which is the thing that most people vote on. There are issues with people trying to overextend and live on credit. I saw more really nice, souped up, upgraded, aftermarket stuff, pickup trucks on our drive out. My family and I took a drive out towards the Texas countryside. We went out into the hill country. I don't know if you call it hill country or not, but whatever, Central Texas. And we drove out a couple hours away from Austin. We got on the Guadalupe River, unplugged completely. And I'm exhausted from doing that. Like, whenever you take these trips, it ends up being like refreshing for your soul, but exhausting for your body. And as we were driving in and out, and I took 2 different routes on purpose because my wife and I wanted to kind of vary our critical path there. We drove out and I kept seeing in these farmyards and these local small, hobby farms and properties that are, anywhere from 10 to a couple hundred acres. They had enormous, $75,000, $80,000, $90,000 pickup trucks, like the super diesels, the extended cabs with lifted and big tires and aftermarket bumpers and all the stuff that you would do, like something that you babied and you built up and you thought you were going to keep. And they were relatively new. They were not end of life cycle stuff. Some of these were only like a couple of years old, inside of even 5 years old. And they're being sold off because people can no longer afford their note. And it's obvious. Ryan Matta actually turned me onto a metric that I'd never looked at before. But the idea was looking at searches for pawn shops. You can go in and see the Google Trends, pawn shops near me, and seeing how many people are looking for them. When people start going into pawn shops or they start selling off a vehicle that would otherwise be part of their necessary business function, they're hurting. We covered it on this program. People are deciding whether or not they can pay their utility bills or pay their credit card bills. And like a third of people in this country have basically said, I'm going to deprioritize and not even make payments on my credit card, which they might be living off. That's real. It's undeniable real. And the Harris campaign is foolish to ignore that with their fake AstroTurf excitement and people standing outside. Nobody's excited about this lady. She didn't even run in the primary. We have to keep pounding on this. There are a couple things that are both insane. Number one, the party that wants to defend my democracy keeps doing it. And what do? They didn't even they didn't even have an election. They had a selection for the person that's in there because the person they have in the White House is so bad. That's wild. And then the second piece of it, I think, is that there's real problems in this country and there's really weird stuff going on, just like we saw, just like the Biden laptop story. You remember Hunter Biden's laptop story? Do you remember what was seated out in front of it? The FBI came to Facebook and others, we believe, like according to Zuckerberg and some interviews that we've heard out there, and said that there was a hack and leak operation going on, and therefore not to print and to discredit anything about Hunter Biden's laptop. And then I see this, which happened over the weekend, and I'm not seeing a ton of coverage on it yet. Politico is reporting that they received internal Trump campaign documents from a anonymous person who self-assigned the name Robert. And the campaign confirmed that it was in fact hacked. The campaign suggesting that Iran was to blame. That's most likely from briefings that have come in. There are, ways to detect this kind of thing. Politico has not been able to verify the identity of the hacker or their motivation. What we're talking about is an actual hack and dump operation. The thing that they accuse the Hunter Biden laptop of being is actually happening to the Trump campaign. It lets you know exactly where you should stand when you look out into the world. Ronald Reagan was saying, are we safer? Are we better off? The threats and the danger countries that America investigates and has counterintelligence operations on and counter security measures in place for, those countries are worried about Donald Trump. That should tell you everything you need to know. Donald Trump is not favorable to the Iranian regime. And so they're going to try to dump information out of his campaign. The campaign referred to it as a foreign sources that are hostile to the United States sending spear phishing emails to a high-ranking official inside the presidential campaign. No idea who clicked on this, but you guys got to be careful with your emails because they do come in and they will obtain access to your network. These documents were illegally obtained from foreign hostile sources intended to interfere with the 2024 election, sow chaos in our democratic process. This is a spokesperson for Donald Trump and for the campaign. On Friday, a new report from Microsoft found that Iranian hackers broke into the account of a quote-unquote high-ranking official at a U.S. presidential campaign in June of 2024. And obviously, they're confirming that that was something that they experienced. Very interesting stuff. When every stop has been pulled out. So we've seen all the things happen. They've tried to discredit him. They're now attacking they're attacking the VP candidate, J.D. Vance, in every way possible. They're trying to discredit his military service because they picked Tim Walz, the governor of Minnesota, who seems like he's got some real problems about lying in his record. And then they're trying to gaslight that by saying he's being swift-boated. Give me a break, people. And then this, nation-state actors taking actions. Are we hearing a massive push from the FBI? Are they out there trying to run this down and stop it and protect the campaign? I don't hear it. I'm not hearing it at all. I'm not hearing it and I'm not seeing it. That bothers me. It seems like a real problem. Let me say thanks to my friends over at Patriot Coolers before we move on to the next topic. This is the Patriot Coolers, the travel mug that I take everywhere. It was on the river with me yesterday and it was in the minivan. PatriotCoolers.com is where you can go get your own. You can customize it just like I have if you like. Use promo code Kyle, K-Y-L-E. It's the same discount you get for being a veteran, but it supports our program, and it's easier. You don't have to give them your ID. You don't have to show or prove anything. All you got to do is use KYLE. Save that 10% if you're buying one of the bigger products. We took their soft-sided cooler with us because we wanted to bring some stuff that we needed to stay cold. It's a great little tool. I've got all the different Patriot Cooler stuff, and when our family out there were like, hey, are those the people that sponsor you? It's like, yep, and we use them every day. Cups, coolers, hard-sided, soft-sided, you name it. They're always getting put into work. Sometimes the hat. I didn't take the hat with me yesterday, but they've got merch there. And instead of it saying something weird, it simply says Patriot. You guys can get behind that. Check out PatriotCoolers.com, our good friends. And we do appreciate their sponsorship and their support. You guys should support them too. Should we keep going? Should we keep pushing? There's some issues. In addition to having a really, really bad campaign push, and I do think that Kamala Harris is terrible, she somehow decided to steal Donald Trump's talking points. So they're hacking the campaign. He's already said this publicly, so you don't have to hack this. And I'm not trying to say that Kamala Harris people were hacking the campaign. I'm saying people that are more favorable to Harris are hacking against Donald Trump. Kamala Harris has decided to go out there and push the no taxes on tip thing. They're going to redefine income. This is the weirdest push. The weirdest part of this clip, I'll let you guys listen, and I'll tell you what it is right afterwards. But listen, there's something weirder than just stealing Donald Trump's campaign policy idea. Ready?
And eliminate taxes on tips for service and hospitality workers.
I used to be in the restaurant business. Do you guys know what the hospitality business is? Hold on.
And eliminate taxes on tips for service and hospitality workers.
Why are they cheering? Your dim bulb, your 15 watt, just went out there and just said hospitality. That's really weird. I've decided that all income that comes into me, and you guys are probably in the same boat right now. Are you in the same boat that all of your salary, those are all actually tips? Can we recategorize all of our income to be tips? It's actually pretty close in my case. It's all 1099. In theory, individual tips could be 1099s, could they not? Can I 1099 everything and have no more taxes? I'm fully into that. In fact, I'm fine with disbanding almost all of the elements of the federal government. I don't need them. I like my state government. I'd be willing to pay some taxes for that. I'd definitely be willing to pay a consumption tax to support things that are around me. I just don't need the federal government. Luckily, I live in a state that is not completely absurd. It's not ideal, like many places. Like government is always a bad example, but Minnesota seems like it's pretty rotten. So there's some more stories coming out about what a piece of garbage the Minnesota governor, now the VP candidate with Kamala Harris is. Tim Walz is a COVID tyrant. So saith Reason Magazine. He actually defended his state's disastrous nursing home policy. He had a COVID-19 tip line, which has been referred to as a snitch line. He earned an F on fiscal policy from the Cato Institute. Extremely progressive governing is also known as socialism, aka neighborliness, if you believe in what this guy's all about. And he was a big fan of all of the tyrannical rules. I've got some of the pieces. Kaneko the Great put some of this stuff out, and I think it's worth reading some of the emails that came in. It's not just that there was a snitch line. It's that there are a bunch of people, and I assume many of these are women, but some of them are feminized men, decided to burn up that line by turning in their neighbors. And I'm going to read you some examples because these are really good ones. These are just straight off the Twitter, but here we go. I got to lean into it if you don't mind. This is a email. Subject is stay-at-home violations. At Walmart in Fergus Falls, Minnesota, people with small children are coming into the store and shopping for everything but essential items. We have heard people say they are bored at home and that the only place that is open is Walmart. Have been told I'm not the Walmart police and to mind my own business. Yep. Can confirm you should mind your own business. You suck. You're terrible. And you should be ashamed of yourself. You're upset because people with little kids who are not at risk are going to a grocery store or a non-grocery store and shopping for whatever the hell they want in America. You freaking communist. How about this one? Another one. The subject is violation. There are still large group meetings in park in Richfield, Minnesota. Example tonight at 5:30, more than 10 kids playing soccer at Monroe Park. Please have the city take down equipment to stop this. Thanks. Karen, I assume. How gross are you that is the thing that you wanted to send into the government to solve? What does it have to do with you? Nothing. You simply saw a violation and you decided to call it out. Were you the same person that was like ratting out kids that were like going to the bathroom because they had diarrhea but they didn't have a hall pass? Unbelievable. Here's another one. This one's fun too. I cut out the title, so I don't know what it says. Hello, blank Global Academy in New Brighton. There are 5 or 6 young men playing basketball on the school courts. My concern is that there are 4 cars parked on the Global Academy parking lot, and I've witnessed 2 parents dropping off their kids to go play. So, to me, this means there are kids from at least 5 or 6 different households playing basketball, and in my opinion, not practicing social distancing or following the governor's order or practicing common sense. I do not know what to do. I've decided to reach out to the government, who has people with guns, to solve my problem. Thank you so much for your attention to this matter. Karen again. And then he also defended his policy of shoving COVID-19 patients into nursing homes, which is the same situation that happened in New York with Cuomo. The controversial policy has been questioned as Minnesota care settings play host to the vast majority of deaths in the state. Now, 2 things can be true at once. Number 1, old people and obese and unhealthy people were the ones who died from COVID, obviously, because they're the ones who die from all the diseases, obviously. That's just how that works. It turns out the older you get, the more likely you are to die from things. Some people die from rugs because they trip. Some people fall when they get out of the shower, and they're called Joe Biden. The older you get, the more dangerous the world is to you. Okay, we get it. But also, when you start taking people who have a communicable disease that has the ability to compromise the respiratory system and you shove them in to a care setting where there's other people who have other problems and they're looking for support, medical support to be able to continue their lives, they die off. We have friends who lost family members this way. It's pretty atrocious. And for him to not have any sense of sympathy, to not have any sense of being able to just let people live their lives and trying to shut down playground equipment, creating a snitch line for people to basically turn against their neighbors to inspire the worst that there are out there, the worst instincts that human beings have. It's not good. This is an interesting little story. It came out of the Kansas City, I want to say the Kansas City Star, confirming. Yes, Kansas City Star. And it's a guest commentary piece from a guy named David Mastio. He's a regular opinion correspondent for them. He wrote, like Tim Waltz, a lot of us are selective hypocrites about mind your own business. Now, that comes from this little clip that I'm going to play you real quick, where he's talking about abortion, and he's saying, this is Tim Waltz saying, mind your own business about abortion. Now, this guy brings up some interesting pieces. The problem is they are not apples to apples comparisons. I'm going to break them down in 1 second here. But let's listen to him say, this is what he thinks Republicans should do about abortion issues.
Because we know there's a golden rule. Mind your own damn business.
Okay, that's not a golden rule. The golden rule is do unto others as you would have done to yourself. That's the golden rule in a Christian country. Unless you're a commie and you hate Christianity and you hate sort of the Judeo-Christian values that America and most of the West is founded on. That's possible. You could do that. In any case, this was his theory about how Republicans should deal with abortion. The problem is they're not doing one-to-one. So I'm going to go back here and I'm going to read. I skipped down through a couple of these things. His suggestion is that if we did a quote-unquote mind your own damn business situation, then America would be blessed and we would have the Attorney General of Missouri not trying to sue New York because they're prosecuting Donald Trump and they could focus on Missouri problems. Maybe. It would be nice if they didn't prosecute Donald Trump because those are garbage, but there's that. The New York politicians could try to stop regulating cow farts in the Midwest and deal with New York problems. This is his claim. Democrats could stop trying to use taxes to fund abortions, as their platform suggests. Republicans could stop trying to outlaw abortions of grown women who don't want to turn a pea-sized embryo into a baby. The problem is we don't agree with you that the pea-sized embryo is not a baby because it's a baby. It's been a baby the whole time. And anybody who knows that, 6 weeks in, if you can hear heartbeats, 6 or 8 weeks in, it's a baby, dude. Anyhow, this guy, he's making an argument that I don't hate, except that it's just disingenuous. Democrats could stop letting liberal librarians put smut in our kids' libraries and tampons in the boys' bathrooms. Republicans could stop trying to regulate the health care parents want for their trans kids, except there's no such thing as a trans kid. That's fake. It's false. It's always been fake. Kids have problems trying to associate with their gender because they're kids and they have problems. I remember when I was in middle school, and some of you guys may have had this experience. I remember putting on pants and them never feeling right. I don't know why. Maybe they just weren't cut right. I had big legs. I've always had big legs. But like, I was uncomfortable everywhere I walked. I was like, is this how you're supposed to walk? Like, this feels weird. Because you're a freaking kid. Because you're in middle school and it's awkward as all hell. Your body is taller. You're building differently. I've been the same height since I was in 7th grade. Okay? I don't know. I just don't think that you can try to make the claim that a kid can change and cut off their genitals or have like some puberty blockers. Those are not one-to-one to putting pornography in the library. So either these people are going to have honest arguments, or we're going to see this mind your own business and they're going to say, let them do all these damaging, crazy things to their own kids. Here's the deal. I'm willing to get into the business of my neighbors. If I watch somebody who rears back and a kid says, hey, can I have an apple? And the dad slaps him across the face, I'm going to get involved in public. That's not acceptable. You don't get to just beat the hell out of your kid. And it turns out our law enforcement does it too. We used to be able to hold ourselves accountable to a standard in society. I think it's one of the reasons why we have divorce. Yes, people have problems. We were having this conversation on the drive back yesterday, my wife and I. And it's like, yeah, there's problems. There are bad men out there in the world. And that's the business of men. If men are lousy partners to their wives, it's my business too. I don't want it to be, but it has to be. Society to function, we all have to hold ourselves to a high standard. And then you go out and do well. We can't go out there and let people cut off the junk of their kids without being involved in that. And also, we can't have pornography in the libraries. This goes on. He's talking about other parts of the culture war. The truce would be us minding our own business. Got an opinion on birth control? Mind your own business. I'm kind of okay on it, like whatever. It's not a great idea. There's a lot of evidence that birth control is a real problem. The right to die, mind your own business. Again, I'm actually a little bit more ambivalent on that one. There are people who are in serious pain and there is no outcome that's going to be good. As a Catholic, that's really difficult to kind of square with the idea that you can't take life. But I know why someone might want to. I've been in hospitals with people dying. So, okay, you get those ones. I'll spot you those. Have a thought on what kind of healthcare plan your neighbor should buy? Mind your own business? Yeah, that's a no-brainer at all. Imagine all the federal and state bureaucracy we could shut down. Hey, now I'm getting with you. Making risky investments, it's not the government's business. I agree. Getting involved in subscriptions, not the government's business. I agree. We're talking the right thing. Shut down the SEC. Sure. I just don't think people should be putting their money in places where they don't understand what it does. But that's your business. It is your money. I'm okay with that. There are con artists. You will get conned. I'm okay with that too. I also don't think the government should tell you whether or not someone should have to have a license to cut their hair. I cut my hair all the time. I don't have a license. And that's the only time it's okay. What if I want to charge somebody else to do it? Because I've got a skill set and I do exactly one haircut all the time. If you come to my house, you go to the Ninja Barbershop, you're getting the Kyle Seraphin haircut. It looks like this. It's like a high fade. I could do a medium or a low fade for you as well. I can fade at different levels, but that's all I know how to do. I can't cut girls' hair. I can only cut guys' hair. You can get this haircut if you come to me. Do I need a license to do that? Why? It's just a freewheeling exchange. I tend to agree with this stuff. So there's some pieces in here that make some sense. The problem is when you put the big ticket items up there like abortion, you put the big ticket items up there like transing kids, you're now screwing with human life and we should protect that. So we can't agree on those things. But in this case, he says, he also talks about blue laws, which is to say when you can or can't buy liquor. I also agree. Like, let people buy beer, liquor at any time they want. And so he ends up with this little piece here saying, well, it seems like a nice guy. He serves his country as an enlisted guy. He did lie about it. That seems problematic. And he's in touch with enough regular people that he could come up with a good idea to fix our politics. But maybe I should just mind my own damn business. Yeah, I want to mind my own damn business too, right up until the point when you start messing with kids and the future, which is what Western society is set up to do. We are set up to enable better outcomes for children and women. That's it. That's the purpose of our society. It facilitates you being able to live your best life by protecting some of these basic things. In any case, I wanted to throw the quote up here just so you guys can see if you're not following Kanekoa the Great. That's where that little piece came from about his inconsistencies, worth giving people credit for the work that they're doing. And then I'm going to kind of hit this little piece because since Waltz is being talked about his deployments and his sort of lies, and he's using his military service to categorize, they always get somebody that they can use. It tells me that Kamala Harris is more interested in gun control than previously considered. That may be one of their bigger issues. And they need someone who's a veteran and a hunter and all the other nonsense that he says. Those pieces allow them to make attacks on gun owners. So J.D. Vance takes a swing. This is coming from Daily Wire, saying that she's done as many tough interviews as Tim Walz has done battlefield deployments. That's pretty funny. So, of course, they've got to defend him, they being the mainstream media. J.D. Vance, a guy who was a combat cameraman or a combat historian or whatever they call it in the Marine Corps. I'm going to tell you a funny story about adding the word combat to things. It's just what people do in the military because that's the purpose of the job. Here's a very nice lady who doesn't seem like she's ever done a deployment, probably didn't sign up for military service from everything I can tell looking up at it, saying that J.D. Vance is an imperfect messenger because she doesn't like him because he's a Republican. Let's be real.
I also think that J.D. Vance as a messenger on this may be an imperfect messenger because we have, as you introduced him, as a combat correspondent, which was what his title was. But when you dig a little deeper into that, he was a public affairs specialist, someone who did not see combat, which certainly the title combat correspondent kind of gives you a different impression. So he may be the imperfect messenger on that.
Is that really fair? Because it says combat correspondent and you didn't know what it meant, and so you assumed something and you assigned it? Listen, when I was active duty, I had a buddy who was an absolute stud. He should have been awarded Bronze Stars for valor under fire. A couple of firefights that I've been told stories of by people that knew him during that time. Lost all of his front teeth, Purple Heart, the whole deal. Ate a 50 cal turret. And I was just telling this to George Hill earlier today. In any case, absolute stud. And when drunk, he was a complete maniac, like many Marines and prior Marines are, actually many enlisted guys in general. And I remember going into a restaurant one time and he grabbed me by the neck and he started screaming at the waitress, like, do you know who this is? This is Seraphin. He's a combat mathematician. He's so smart. Like when you're in the military, you add combat to anything and it makes sense. Combat cooks, right? Combat camera, combat correspondent. Like the purpose is like, imagine the balls it takes to go into a war zone with a camera only and not be armed in the traditional way. That's ballsy to me. What do I know? I didn't deploy, but I'm telling you, I would have deployed with a weapon, not a camera. So he gets all the credit, period. Those of us who serve stateside and get it, it's like, the problem is that the man claimed that he deployed into war. I'm not going to characterize his service at all. 24 years is 24 years. Right up until you lie about your rank when you get out. I'm very, very clear when I tell people, it's like, look, I was at E3 the whole time. I couldn't promote because of the way that my training worked. I literally had entire skill sets underneath my my training program. I was a fully capable air traffic controller, and I couldn't get an air traffic control operational badge for that, and I couldn't go to work in that field because it was a subset of the field that I was doing. I was a fully capable medic. I was a licensed paramedic, or I had a national certification and I got state license afterwards. Was not able. Couldn't get an IDMT slot. Couldn't go do the job. I don't know. Like the military does dumb things. It's dumber when you lie about it. When you are being disingenuous, when you characterize your service in a way that is false. If you can't back it up on paperwork or people around you, and when a bunch of people come out and say, hey man, you're lying. You never did this thing. You deployed to Italy. You got to hang out. And by the way, I'm waiting for it. Somebody said that they're going to do some research and find out how many times he had his family visit him in Italy. And that is a distinct difference from a combat zone where your family's definitely not going to come out there unless you live in the State Department or you work for the State Department. Maybe you would then. In any case, I think J.D. Vance is exactly the right guy to talk about all this kind of stuff. All right. We're going to throw a sponsor up, and then I'm going to get into my favorite story of the week, which is going to, I know we waited to the end, but I'm excited about it, so I'm going to play it in a second here. First off, if you guys want to support the program, you want to support Mike Lindell, you guys want to go and save yourself some money, all three can be done by going to mypillow.com/Kyle, Kyle. At the end, use that promo code, save up to 50%. I have to look at the specials. I keep forgetting to do that on Mondays. It's not something I go do because I'm not in the market for anything right now. But mypillow.com/Kyle. You guys want to get towels, you want to get slide-on slippers, you want to get yourself a new MyPillow 2.0. They've always got great deals on there, and the deals are, like, some people swear by them. I don't like the pillows. I'll just be straight up with you. I don't. I was on Timcast, and they were like, yeah, we have tons of them. We give them out to people. And it's like, oh, I would refuse that. No, thank you. I don't like the MyPillow, at least the one that I tried. The 2.0 maybe is better, but it wasn't impressive to me. But a lot of people love them. So if you want to do that, the towels are good. The slippers seem comfortable. My buddies like swear by those things. The robes, etc. If you guys want to do it, mypillow.com/Kyle. Blah. All right, there it is. Let's do this. This is the best story and should be at the top line. We're probably going to end up going a little long because I got some more stuff I want to talk about with the Secret Service. The Secret Service is coming from Zero Hedge. The Secret Service apologizes for picking a lock and breaking into a local salon, a business, after covering up their security camera. Let me just play the video of it. Folks, if you're listening on the audio show, we're, 50 minutes into the show right now. You have to see this if you have not. Otherwise, find it on social media. Otherwise, go to Zero Hedge. But I had to dig into their webpage to find this a little deep. This video is wild. What you're seeing on the screen right now is the female Secret Service agent, unblurred. Thank God. I'm glad they didn't redact it. The video I'm going to show you has the redacted face. And she puts a freaking piece of tape over this security camera. This shit has got to stop. Sorry, I didn't mean to swear about that. There's no way that we can allow the federal government and federal agencies to come in and by default shut down people's security apparatus and then commit crimes. This is a crime. I looked it up. It's breaking and entering in Massachusetts, just like it is anywhere else. If you did this in Texas and the shop owner was in there, they would shoot you, or they certainly could, because you're entering and nobody knows why, and you're armed. Now you're breaking and entering with a weapon, even if you're allowed to carry it. You've now moved into a probable felony. It's very weird in Massachusetts. I looked at it. They're actually very criminal friendly. They said you have to have criminal intent when you enter. Apparently their intent was to take a pee break. Yet another argument for women not being on this particular type of job. Do you know where dudes go pee? On a tree. The whole world is your toilet when you're a man. That doesn't make it fair. It doesn't make it nice. I've got 4 little women in my family. One is my wife and 3 little girls. And it is a bummer to have to go and find a place for them to pee. But you know what? They got to do it. Now, the only thing that I would say is, no, I'm not going to make an excuse. If you had a poop emergency, which is a possibility, I suppose, you have to poop outside. That's just the way it works. Ask anybody who's been in the military and done it. Yes, I've done it stateside too. Anyway, this is the video. Stand by. All right, there's not a significant amount of value on the article after that, or sorry, the video. But what you missed, if you're listening to us, is the woman walking up, recognizing there's a security camera. She's in a suit. Then she goes and gets a chair. She didn't bring her own ladder like Thomas Crooks or whatever. She brings a chair, stands up, covers it with tape, which she actually happens to have, which is very interesting to me, so that it masks the crime of them breaking and entering a private business that was not authorized. And you can tell by the alarm sound that you heard, where they have 2 what looks like EMS personnel, from what I could gather. They're emergency medical types that are hanging out in there, whether they had to use the bathroom. They go and help themselves to some hand sanitizer at the business. Okay. That's a misdemeanor, I think. I don't know. What are they doing in there? Who told you that you could just go into a business while armed? Those people should lose their jobs and be criminally prosecuted. I cannot fathom ever considering this to be a real thing outside of a life-threatening emergency. And I used to do this for a living, roll out into places that were uncomfortable and do weird stuff. I had to pee in a bottle for years because that's what you do. Because you're on the job, or you got to hold it, or you got to go and get someone to relieve you and have good comms and radio and get someone in. That person should lose their job and be criminally prosecuted. There is nothing acceptable about this. Imagine if they came in and they actually disturbed an actual crime. Let's say that they got in there and they witnessed, oh, this business is actually engaging in moving drugs. All those things are tossed out. This is a 4th Amendment violation at that point. Is this a Quartering Act violation too? Is this like, or not a Quartering Act, but a 3rd Amendment? Like, all of this is insane that your federal government is paying somebody a big amount of money. As a federal agent in 1811, they are making somewhere between, let's say, $90,000 and $175,000 a year. Secret Service tends to max out that 175 number, by the way. It's roughly that amount because of all the overtime they do. Are we being serious right now? We're paying somebody upwards, like almost $200,000 a year to commit either a misdemeanor burglary, a misdemeanor breaking and entering, or a felony, the state laws still apply. And there's nothing duty related about going in because you're looking for a bathroom. That's poor planning on your end. We used to scout this stuff out right away. People would go out there. My team would go. We'd find like a friendly bathroom or a friendly restaurant. We'd find a place we could go that was a publicly available restroom that was farther away. You never do it right where you're working. We never broke into anything. And I've done this in 20 different states, just like Secret Service goes all over the place. This was for a Kamala Harris fundraiser. So not an official duty, I would claim. Absolutely insane. And this should be one of the biggest scandals, that Secret Service is completely off the rails with no accountability. It absolutely blows my mind. The woman who owned it was a woman called Alicia Powers. She said they didn't communicate with her, and they've since apologized. She closed the business because there was a fundraiser. There was a chaotic security presence. So she just, I guess the fundraiser was being held in a business that was right behind hers. She said they had a bunch of people in here doing all kinds of bomb suites. And again, I totally understand they have to do that, nature of the situation. At that point, my team felt like it was a bit chaotic. We made the decision to close for the Saturday. And there were several people that were in and out of my business for 90 minutes, using my bathroom, alarms going off, using my counter with no permission. And when they were done using the bathroom for 2 hours, they left. They left the building completely unlocked, and they didn't take the tape off the camera. So they didn't even reset it as it was. They didn't secure it, and they didn't contact the owner to be able to fix it. This is atrocious. That's what you do in a search warrant if you are the kind of person that tapes up a camera in a search warrant, which I got a big problem with. There's some operational things that people have said. Screw you. It's not yours. And if you're not there to, you're not there and you don't have the authority to do that. They should have to ask for permission from a judge to justify shutting down a security camera. I despise all of this stuff. It makes me sick. All right, let's not miss out on some other really interesting stuff. There's a couple other stories that I want to do, and I don't want to rant on it too much longer. This is good news, so let's do that. District Court judge rules that an illegal alien cannot be prosecuted for possessing a firearm, possibly setting up a Supreme Court ruling on alien rights. I took this from the Center for Immigration Studies, so this is a left-leaning, pro-immigrant, pro-illegal alien website. Why is that good news, Kyle? Because I'm a Second Amendment absolutist, and I like everything when the left goes and fights themselves. There's a lot of graphics and information on the screen. I'm going to try to read you the small parts of it, okay? 18 U.S.C. 922 is the general statute that allows what's called felon possession or prosecutions. It is the general statute that says who is and is not allowed to possess a firearm in this country. And it's a big problem. It's also the statute they go to say an illegal alien. Now, if you're a Second Amendment absolutist, like I am, there's nothing that says that people should not be able to own a gun. And if they've served their time and they've come out of prison and we're allowing them to live amongst us as a productive member of society, if we're going to pretend like there is such a thing as rehabilitation, or if there actually is such a thing as rehabilitation, which there should be for certain crimes, why on earth would a felon not be able to own a gun? They're now saying that you cannot claim that this law, this federal law, which many people have been prosecuted against, this is going to overturn what the FBI does for business. The FBI spends a ton of time taking local cases, prosecuting them under 922, and creating a felon in possession federal charge against otherwise state charges. This just turns over the entire apple cart, and that's why it's good to me. Anything that undermines the power and the authority of this federal government that's willing to break into your freaking salon and leave your business unlocked and cover up your security cameras, I'm for it. And are the FBI and the Secret Service the same? No, they are not. But they're all part of the same tyrannical government right now that is being abused. 922 says, it shall be unlawful for any person who, being an alien, illegal or unlawfully in the United States, to ship, transport, interstate foreign commerce, possess, affect commerce, blah, 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 firearms or ammunition. So it is a general prohibition against illegal aliens in this country from having, possessing, transferring, buying, or selling firearms. And a federal judge said that the government argued that the historical record has established that there are legislatures that have categorically disarmed two separate groups of individuals that are relevant to 922G5. Individuals who were not members of the political community and individuals who threatened the social order through their unworthy adherence to the rule of law, or untrustworthy adherence, rather. And the defendant said that this untrustworthy adherence to the law has a historical exception. And so therefore, they believe that every single person should get an individual assessment of whether or not they're going to be guilty and whether or not this law is even constitutional. And the judge said, yeah, I agree. Consequently, found that Section 922G5 was unconstitutionally applied in this case. This was a guy who was basically involved in a neighborhood watch. He was given a firearm by somebody who thought that he needed to be armed in the Little Village neighborhood of Chicago, Illinois. It's happening under their noses. The gun control being overturned at the federal level in a district that encompasses Chicago, that's flippin' hilarious, and I'm here for it. So that's why I think it's good news. It may not sit with you guys that well. I want you to know that my position is always that nobody should lose their individual civil liberties unless they are incarcerated. And at that point, bring them back out. They should have access to it. There's a small number of people that shouldn't have it. But some of those people, if they shouldn't have it, they shouldn't be allowed free. Because if you're not free, why are we letting you out? The only other restriction would be like a lifetime of parole, in which case they're under supervised release and maybe they can't own them. I don't know. I haven't worked the way through it. I know that that's ridiculous. All right, lastly, I want to cover something here that Jesse Waters talked about. Let me play the Jesse Waters story. It's very disingenuous. I got a big problem with the way this is being covered. I want you guys to know I've been continually consistent on talking about the issue with what happened in Butler, PA. The issue, let me go full screen on this. The issue is the same. It's always been the same. The Secret Service blew it. They've got dummies that are going out there and breaking into businesses and throwing up security cams and blocking that off. They're doing a crap job of actually securing their protectees. They're bringing in incompetence. It's not the same thing to say that and then also say, well, they might have set somebody up because of this failure. Listen to what Jesse Waters says. I'm going to debunk it in 1 second for you.
The FBI has barely said a word about what happened in Butler, Pennsylvania. Thankfully, Congress is churning out new information to help the American people understand what happened. Records obtained by Senator Chuck Grassley show Thomas Crook's intense preparation in the months leading up to his assassination attempt. Turns out that Crooks first joined the Clairton Gun Club in August of last year, just a year ago, and then visited the range 43 times. Crooks even spent holidays at the shooting range, including Christmas, Valentine's Day, Halloween. And his parents didn't think this was strange. In 2024, he went to the range for target practice 3 to 6 times a month, almost exclusively training with rifles, not handguns, and made one final visit the day before shooting Trump. The shooting range was crawling with feds. Multiple local and federal law enforcement agencies trained at this facility, including the Department of Homeland Security, which oversees Secret Service. Crooks was training under federal law enforcement's nose. We're now seeing just how close they got to each other. Just 2 months before trying to kill Trump, Crooks was at the range within 24 hours of a Homeland Security Office training session.
All right. This is incredibly dumb. This is the dumbest thing that I've heard on Fox in a while. It's really irresponsible. Number one, the reason why he was training with rifles and not handguns is because he's 20, so he can't go out and purchase a handgun. He can own a handgun, but he can't purchase one. So unless someone loans him a handgun and sends him in there, he can't do that. And usually you can't rent them at that age too, unless you have a guardian or somebody who's older. So number one, debunked. That's easy. The second thing is he's 20 years old. What the hell responsibilities does he have? I used to go to the gun range 4 times a month when I was in college at about 20 years old or 21 years old. And I brought my handguns. Is that a big deal? I had a regular date. I would just show up on Wednesdays. That's what I did. On Wednesday night, I went and shot. So who cares? Is it a lot of times? Maybe, but maybe he really liked it. Maybe he wanted to be a guy who could shoot a rifle. You're now also saying that he was doing extensive training. That has to be documented. You have to prove that. Is there a diary somewhere that we don't know about? Is there a manifesto saying I trained for this? No. My problem is that may be true, but you can't prove it by simply showing that he went there and then he did something. Those are logical leaps that are not proven. This is the lazy thinking that we keep seeing. There is no proof that him showing up at a gun range equals him training to do the thing that he did in Butler. For all we know, he just snapped the day of and decided to do it, that it was a target of opportunity. I've shot rabbits before while I was out doing some shooting at steel targets. I didn't plan on shooting the rabbit. I didn't train to shoot the rabbit. I was training just because I train. And there was a rabbit that goes right, and I just smoked it because I was like, I don't know, boom. And then I was like, I felt bad. I skinned it, and I gave it to my neighbor who ate it. It doesn't mean that you trained for something just because you were doing training. Does that make sense? It's the same thing as if somebody came into your house and you shot them. And they'd be like, oh my God, Seraphin shot a guy in his house and he's been training for this for years. Look, he goes to the gun range all the time. It's like, that's not training to do that thing. It just popped up. It was an opportunity because I had to defend myself. Or he had a break and he decided to lose it. Or the FBI recruited him. I don't know. We don't know that. And the other stupid thing, and probably the dumbest thing that I've seen, the idea that DHS was there 24 hours after him and that somehow has anything to do with anything, give me a flippin' break. Do you know how many times you've been to the grocery store? Let's say how many times you've been to church and somebody at your church or your grocery store has committed a crime within 24 hours, or that you've been in 24-hour contact in the same physical place. That gun range looks huge. It looks like a really nice place to go train. There it is. That's a picture from their website. That's a nice facility. It's a covered outdoor range to shoot rifles with nice tables and seating and a clean range officer, and you can set up targets and they have them out to 187 yards. Great. I love it. I love that people are out training and shooting rifles. Does the fact that somebody showed up at a gun range and then later on, a day later, committed a crime mean that you are somehow connected to that person? No. And do you think that like federal agents know how to do pre-crime so that if they're in the presence of someone who's plotting to do something evil, that they just know it? Are you out of your flipping minds, people? It's insanity. It's truly insane. And then there's also this idea like, oh, well, obviously the FBI or the DHS set him up because they were training at the same place. Do you really think they're that bad? Like, they're that bad in a lot of things. They're not that bad when they're setting up something that they want to keep a little bit quiet. Come on now, people. We don't have the ability to predict just because somebody's in your presence. You can't sense evil. It is made up. So all of this stuff is like logical leaps with facts not in evidence. Maybe those things are true, but Fox doesn't have the smoking gun to be able to connect those dots. And I wish people would be a little bit more discriminatory about the way they do it. I want you to be a skeptic if you listen to this program. Question the logical leaps that we are making. You have to ask those questions, and they don't have that information. The fact that Chuck Grassley was able to put those out there, the fact that they unredacted the thing that says that the DHS was training there. Why? Okay, they covered up all the names, but not the law enforcement, and they're trying to make a narrative that doesn't exist. They're trying to force something through that they don't have the information for. Now, the last little piece out there, and I didn't grab the screenshots. I did earlier, but then I don't have them up for you. But the last little thing is that there were people that were undercover in the crowd, like you'd expect, what we used to call hurricane teams. The hurricane teams are basically plain clothes. I've done it. It's a counter-surveillance mission. There's an entire counter-surveillance division for the Secret Service. They were walking around. You want to know what they were wearing? Because Steve Baker's got them on Twitter. You can see them. They were wearing cargo shorts that were khaki and darkish colored shirts, blue, gray, the same exact thing that Thomas Crooks was wearing. When I told you that the reality of looking through your rifle scope and seeing somebody that looks exactly like the guy you met in the pre-security briefing before the rally, generally the same clothes, and you're out at, let's say, 150 yards, or let's say you're out at the kill shot distance, 450 yards. You look over and you're like, oh my God, that guy's wearing the exact same shorts as John, who I met earlier today, who has a badge on underneath that shirt. I'm not going to do the kill shot because I don't know why John has a rifle, but I'm not going to do it. When I told you that the possibility of taking a pause when that happens because of bad deconfliction, that is still the most valid information from what we can see. That is the most logical conclusion. That doesn't mean someone didn't screw up. They did, obviously. And it doesn't mean that there wasn't someone who did it intentionally. We just don't have that information, and neither I don't have it, you don't have it. The FBI is not going to give it to you. We have to actually see evidence to be able to prove this kind of stuff. It's not quite there yet. And this, I think, is very dangerous and disingenuous. I don't like it. And if you guys are offended by that opinion, that is okay. That is why we have the Suspendables. And if you are not offended by it and you're willing to question the narrative, if you're comfortable with the uncomfortable truths, you guys might want to visit my buddy Garrett O'Boyle's show and let people know. I've seen him out in the wild. I went to a birthday party for a baby. Our friend Mr. Kelly was wearing one. The-Suspendables.com. Get yourself the Z Special. Get yourself the Last Line Strength. Get yourself the Last Line logo with that rifle like you see on there. Promo code Kyle, K-Y-L-E, will save you 10%. Keep my buddy working. He's been a little bit less busy. So if you guys want to go out there and find a nice, comfortable shirt, especially if you're looking for the coming winter. It's already getting cold in some of the northern areas. The-Suspendables.com, the-Suspendables.com is the merch store. You can also link to it through our locals page. I have a link in there somewhere. I don't know where it is, but if you guys click on some things, it will drag you over that way. We appreciate your support, and we do. We like you guys running around with this stuff. All right, I'm going to finish up with our palate cleansers. I got two for you. One of them, let's do the most relevant one first. The Secret Service is not the animal you thought it was. Just like I've been telling you, the FBI is not the animal you thought it was. It turns out most of the law enforcement that you guys have been thinking about is not what they pretend to be. That myth of competence is real. Here's a little funny thing about the Secret Service, movies versus reality. You guys may have already seen this. I've tweeted it out before, but I'm going to share it today because it's funny. It's so hard to watch. It's really hard to watch those ladies just like fumble around and do a bad job. I think that's probably more likely standard than not. And we're seeing it as someone decided to go and break in for a pee break. Not normal. All right, I'm going to wrap you up with something. Let me give you a 5-star review, and then I'll wrap you up with a little going back to school music. Some of you are starting school. Some of you have already started school with your kids, putting them back in. Here is a little short 5-star review that we got from Ready to Leave KY3. I don't know what that means. Sent in last Thursday. Great show, 5 stars. Not bad for a Chair Force puke. All of us in the Air Force. There's a story about that. In fact, I'll tell you guys tomorrow the story about the Chair Force and when I went to go play with the Army and how I like to mess with them. The Chair Force, it's a real thing. If you guys graduated basic training and didn't get your custom chair, shame on you. You should have joined the Air Force. All right, Chair Force Puke, we appreciate the 5-star review. Put yours up and we will share them. And how about a little taste of Axl Rose doing the periodic table? Back to school music for you.
Periodic table, study for the test. These abbreviations don't make any sense. Like silver is AG, it makes no sense to me. A tungsten is just W, and lead is just PB. It's a table, periodic table, gonna bring you to your knees. Whoa! Yeah! What the heck is antimony? Periodic table, the names are weird as heck. I only thought beryllium existed in Star Trek. There's seabogium and gadolinium. This sounds like a sports venue, it's Garm Stadium. It's a table, periodic table, won't you bring it to ya? It's gonna bring you down. Pull.
That ends kind of abruptly, but pretty talented guy right there. I guarantee you that will be in your head for the next couple hours, so I apologize, but the periodic table don't make any sense. It's true. It's difficult if you don't know any Latin and you don't know any history about it. All right, folks, thanks for joining us today. We really do appreciate it. Make sure you've hit the like button. Make sure you have subscribed over at locals.com/Kyle Seraphin. If you guys are so interested, we've got almost enough members to do our full show over there. We're getting closer and closer, and I do appreciate, I want to say it, I sincerely appreciate all the active supporters. You don't have to do it while the show is live, which is why we're saying it. Give up your Rumble subscription. I don't ask people to follow me or subscribe on more than one place. You can if you want, but it's totally over and above. We are putting some like small amounts of content. We're going to build up more on there. That's just going to be unique for our subscribers, which is the value proposition better than Rumble. Rumble is just you guys supporting the program. Either way, we do the show for you. So I'm really appreciative. I want to say thank you to each and every one of you that has signed up for whatever amount you've decided. Awesome. And very much appreciated. I get emails every single time they pop in and it's appreciated. I'm going to just say appreciated one more time. I'm going to do a Kamala Harris. Okay. God bless all of you. We will see you again tomorrow. I have no idea what the world holds, but it's been weirder and weirder every day. So let's just embrace the weirdness, JD Vance style, and we'll see you then.
Thanks for listening to the Kyle Seraphin Show, streamed live weekdays on rumble.com/Kyle Seraphin. Follow Kyle on Twitter, Truth Social, and Instagram at Kyle Seraphin.